Hey, can you see me now?
It looks
I
like
can
it's
see you.
recording.
Yes.
Yay. Hello.
Yay.
Hi, Kylie.
Hi,
Oh,
Rob.
there's Rob. Good. Okay, so
You're right
without
beside me.
further ado, I will admit one more person and I will introduce our guest for this evening, Kylee Baumle.
Yay.
Okay, I'm going to tell
Absolutely
you some
correct.
things that you may not have known about Kylee, and then we'll get right into the interview. Kylee spent much of her adult life working as a dental hygienist and raising her kids. When they grew up, she was able to plunge into gardening, becoming a master gardener. Soon she started writing a blog, Our Little Acre. It was good. People noticed it and made her job offers, including writing and photography assignments, featured in the finest and most popular magazines. She also became a brand ambassador for gardening equipment. In 2013, she co-authored her first book, Indoor Plant Decor, the design style book for houseplants. Kylee's second book, The Monarch, Saving Our Most Loved Butterfly, was released in 2017 and is now in its third printing, thanks to people like you.
Thank you.
Kylee currently writes a weekly column called Nature Notes for her local newspaper in rural Northwest Ohio. She is also a sought-after speaker. So Kylee, to start us off, a few of us don't have any natural science background, like me, like Tony, like Brenda, Edith. How about you, Lynn? Did you take science in university? And here we are. We've all wound up being experts in monarch butterflies. They've drawn us there. Tell us your story, Kylee. How did you fall in love with monarch butterflies?
Well, it grew out of my love of gardening, which I didn't really start to garden in earnest until 2005. My mom invited me to go to the Cleveland Flower Show. And it was kind of like somebody just flipped a switch. You know, it was like I came home, I wanted to grow all the plants. And I told my husband, you know, we're going to dig up a big share of the backyard. And he just kind of looks at me like, you know, how long is this going to last? Because I tend to get really passionate about something and I'll do it for a while and then I'll go on to something else. So that was fair. Well, it did last. And then in the fall of 2006, my mom and I took a trip to Delaware to Winterthur to garden fair. And on the way there, we took US 30. And on the way there, we saw a sign when we were going through Pennsylvania for Shanksville. And it said the Flight 93 Memorial. So we didn't have time to stop there on the way. So we decided we would do that on the way back. So we did, and it was September. So we got there and they had a makeshift memorial at that point because it had been 5 years and they had not begun yet to construct the one that they have now. And as we were at the memorial, we heard that they had built a chapel outside of Shanksville to honor the people that had died on Flight 93 on 9/11. So we drove to that. It's a little outside of Shanksville. Have any of you been to that? Have any of you seen that? No, it is worth a trip to see the memorial that they have constructed now. It's beautifully done. But anyway, so they had also planted a peace garden there. And it had been newly planted, I think that year, and they had a granite memorial for the flight. It had all the names etched on it and even some images of their faces. And we stayed there for a little bit and then we got ready to go back in the car to finish our trip home and Mom held her hand up and she said, look what I found. And it was a dead monarch and it had a sticker on it. And she said, I wonder what this is about. And I said, gosh, I don't know, you know. And so we put it up on the dash and we drove on home and she goes, here, you take it, you check it out. So I took it home and of course it said Monarch Watch on it. And first thing I did, I went to the Monarch Watch site and I emailed them and I said, that's it. Yeah, that's the actual butterfly that she found. So I emailed them and they said, well, we have not gotten our data back yet, because it was September, people were still tagging. And so they said, well, check with us in the spring and maybe we can find out, where it came from. So, what happened? I mean, I go through winter, spring comes, and then I'm, on to other things. And I just kind of forgot about it. And that, like I said, that was in 2006. Well, and I decided to do the book. I'm like, I think probably a month from my deadline of turning everything in for the book. And all, I'm telling this story. And then I thought, I wonder if they know now. It's been 10 years. I wonder if they know now where that butterfly came from. So I emailed them again, and they said, well, whoever it belonged to did not turn in their data, but we can tell you that the tag was issued to someone in, I can't even think of the name of the town now. It's in Pennsylvania. So it was kind of an unusual name. And I thought, I'm getting feedback. I don't know if you guys, it's like echo. Can you hear
I
me?
just muted somebody and I think it's helping.
Okay, thanks. Because it's kind of distracting. So anyway, I thought to myself, if they are into tagging, they're probably, their chances are good that they have a way station. So I went on the Monarch Watch way station database and I looked up that city, and I knew it was a really small town. So, I was going to really narrow down the number of people. And sure enough, there was a Monarch way station, only one in that had that address. So then the name of the way station, it looked like it was someone's last name. So I thought, I Googled, I love to do research. So and this was in the middle of the night. I had shut myself in a bedroom upstairs for literally, how many weeks was it? 7 weeks. I think I left the house twice in that amount of time. My husband kept the food coming. I would sleep and wake up and write. And I mean, it was a very intensive writing experience. So here I am, I'm like 3 a.m. and I'm looking up the last name, the city, whatever. And so on Google, one of the first things that came up was a newsletter from a garden club. And in that newsletter, a woman with that same last name was hosting a meeting at her house to show people how to tag monarchs. And I thought, it's got to be her. It's just, that's got to be the one that, tagged this butterfly. So I private messaged her, but you know what happens when you're not friends on Facebook, your private message goes into that other mailbox and maybe they'll see it and maybe they won't. Well, it was 3 days. And of course I'm just dying because I want to hear from her. And I messaged her and I said, this is really going to sound strange, but I told her what happened. And I said, this is the number, letters and number on the tag. Is it possible that this was one of yours? She did message me back and she said, yes, that is one of mine. So I found out where that monarch came from, and it was, I never tell the ending to this story. I've never told this in public. Every time I do a presentation, I tell all of that and then I'll say, but for $20 you can find out the end of that story, because that's what I would sell my book for after I was done doing my presentation. So I'm not going to tell you who actually released that butterfly, because it's a pretty incredible, you can't make this stuff up kind of story. If you have my book, you already know who it was. And I could have never in a million years have dreamed that the person who let that butterfly go would be who they were. It's really pretty incredible. And you don't have to buy the book. I mean, it's in the library and all of that. But I just want you to read it for yourself, because in the book, I start out telling that story of how I got involved in Monarchs. I mean, that's what set me on my whole journey, was that tagged butterfly. That is absolutely the beginning point.
And Kylee, how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, I'd been writing about monarchs for years, and for magazines and different publications, like in my newspaper column, any chance I could get, I'd been writing. So I had a lot of material that was already written, but it wasn't really suitable in book form. And I had a wonderful editor. So how I wrote the book was I would get on it wasn't a linear process. Like, I didn't go from chapter 1 all the way to straight through the end. I would write sections at a time. And then my editor would put it all together in a logical sequence, in a cohesive way. I am terrible at doing that. I can focus on this one thing, but where does that fit in with this? So she was really, really, really good about that. I mean, I had an idea of how I wanted the book laid out, like with the random little anecdotal type stories. I wanted that in there. I knew that I wanted little factoids, in the corner of this page, and, related to what the chapter was about. I knew I wanted that, but the order of things, I had no clue. So
do you have any idea how many of those little, do you have any idea
how long it took me, how long it actually took me? Because I did it very intensively, I would say 3 months, two and a half, 3 months.
And Kylee, do you remember about how many of those little factoids you have in the book?
I don't, because I had a list of those. I've never counted.
They're so much fun. For those who don't have the book, these little factoids are very, very cute, and there will be some factoids that you haven't read anywhere else. So Kylee, I understand you met with lots of experts to write the book. Can you tell us about the day you spent with Lincoln Brower?
I have a really good Lincoln Brower story. Okay. While I was doing research, and I was, what I wanted to do is take the actual scientific process, and I mean, I love knowing the actual name of the parts and how they work and all of that. And the one thing I wasn't quite grasping was when the caterpillar is shedding its skin for the last time, forming its chrysalis, how does it let go and not fall? And, I wanted to know exactly step by step, specifically how that worked. Because what I wanted to do was take what I learned and put it in everyday language. And if I didn't understand it scientifically, how was I going to do that? I didn't want it to be textbooky. I wanted it to be something that anybody could really understand, but I had to understand the technicalities of it myself before I could do that. So I thought, okay, I think I'll just randomly email Lincoln Brower. He might answer me, might not, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I emailed him, and oh my word, like within a day, I had a response from him. Okay. So we got into this discussion back and forth about what I wanted to know. And I couldn't quite get him to understand what exactly I needed to know. He kept sending me this picture, and he'd say, it's right there. And it wasn't. What I wanted to know was not in that picture. Well, it's Lincoln Brower, I'm like, I don't want to argue with him, but I was persistent, and I know I made him angry, because I got an email back from him. It was in all caps. It had about 20 exclamation points after it. And I'm like, oh no, I've made him mad now. I'm never going to hear from him again. And I didn't hear from him for about 3 weeks. And so I thought, well, there you go. And 3 weeks later, that sweet man had done research and found me an article that had exactly the information I wanted to know. And from that point on, we were like great friends. It was just amazing. I see Don shaking his head, you know him. And so you can see how that happened like that. And, you know, I was so sad when he passed away because I can't email him anymore. And he always answered me. He always did. And he never made me feel like I was a lesser person. He always valued my questions enough to answer them. And I cannot tell you how blessed I feel to have had the benefit of his knowledge. I mean, I asked him different, like, what should I be reading? How can I learn more? And, you know, and he said, you can read everything I ever wrote. I thought, oh, I'll be the rest of my life reading that. But so anyway, after the book was finished and I had turned it in, and it was my first trip to Mexico, and I was down there, it was in February, and the book was getting ready to go to the printer. And I had kind of roughly gone through it and checked it for things before I left, but I figured I was going to have time when I got back, before it went to the printer, that I could go over it, you know, slowly and with a fine-tooth comb, because I hate when there's typos and errors and all that stuff. I'm just obsessive about it. And so while we're down there, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we went down there, I thought, you know, I need some little blurbs for the book. Do I dare ask? Well, he insisted I call him Lincoln. So because I kept calling him Dr. Brower. He goes, no, call me Lincoln. So I thought, do I dare ask him if he would write a blurb for my book? Again, nothing ventured, nothing gained. He can only say no, right? So I emailed him and he said, I would be honored to. And I mean, I was just like, oh my goodness. Well, he sent that to me while I was in Mexico. We were in Angangueo at a Hotel Don Bruno in the dining room, eating dinner that night. And the email came through with what he wrote, and I cried. I cried at what he wrote. They didn't put in the book everything that he wrote. Oh, there you are with him. Yeah. And he wrote a pretty long thing, and they had to kind of edit it down, but I sent that. Well, okay, so I sent it to my publisher, and before I even got home from Mexico, they wanted to go ahead and send it to the printer. And I'm like begging. No, please, I need to go through the book. I need to see it before you send it. So when I got home from Mexico, I had literally 24 hours to go through that book with a fine-tooth comb because they needed to get it. They were a little bit behind getting it to the printer anyway. So after all that happened, I wanted him to have a copy of the book. Well, my grandma had just died. She was 102 when she died, and she was born in Virginia. And so my mom wanted to go and see if we could find the house where she was born. She only lived there for, I think, 2 or 3 years. So we decided we would do that. And we were visiting my publisher in Pittsburgh. So we went to Pittsburgh, then we drove on to Crew in Nottoway County, Virginia. And prior to that trip, I mentioned to him, I said, I would really like to give you a copy of my book, and we're going to Virginia. Is there any way we can meet, like, you know, for dinner some night? He invited me to his house. So we drove to his house, and I spent the day there, and we went to dinner that night. He made arrangements for us to stay at the college, at Sweetbriar College. Well, it was on the campus of Sweetbriar. And we spent the afternoon just talking about all kinds of things. We talked about the petition. We talked about tropical milkweed and should it be grown. We talked about, he showed me his moths. He's really into moths. And so he had his sheet up and he was telling me all about that. And One thing he said to me while we were there that really made me kind of sad, he said, I know that I won't get to Mexico ever again. And I said, oh, you don't think so? Because he looked like he was getting around pretty well at that point. And he said, no, he said, those days are over. I know I won't get to go. And so anyway, and I met his wife. She went to dinner with us too. And it was just fun. I don't know how fun it was for my husband or my mom, because we're sitting there just talk, about monarchs, and they're not quite as interested in them as I am, but it was a really, really, really good day. And I just feel very fortunate to have spent that time with him.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that lovely answer. I'm going to ask everyone to mouse down to their toolbar at the bottom. And if you hover down there, you should see all the options like mute, stop video, security. And if you go to the far right before you get to end, you'll see reactions. If you click on reactions, you'll see how to raise your hand. If you would like to ask Kylee a question, raise your virtual hand and I will call on you.
Is that Audrey?
That is Audrey. Okay, Audrey. Go ahead, Audrey.
I was demonstrating.
Oh.
I wanted to just show everybody it's not actually a hand raise. I think there is another place for hand raising. That was just a reaction,
that's
like
a
clapping
reaction,
and
right?
stuff.
That's no, there is raising. That along the top is a bunch of reactions, and then there's the word raise hand. So if I do that and raise hand, my hand is raised. That
Like
Kylee
that.
has her hand raised. So you have another few seconds to put your hand up and ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to get to ask another question, and you can think about what questions that you have for later. So if I didn't see your hand right now, because I can't see it, you can unmute yourself and yell. But in the meantime, I am going to show you something else, and it's going to have disappeared.
While you're looking for that, I'll tell you about the first encounter that I ever had with monarchs. And I really knew nothing about anything to do with them. And it was in September, and on a Sunday morning, and my husband came up and woke me up. He gets up early all the time. And he says, you got to come down here. You got to see our tree. It's got all these butterflies in it. I can't believe it. There's like 50 or more. And I said, oh my gosh. And so I went downstairs, and sure enough, right outside our back door in our maple tree, there were all these monarchs. I don't even know at that point if I knew it was a monarch. And so we did take some pictures, and they're not very good. They're a little bit blurry because they were starting at that time to start fluttering around a little bit because they were going to leave. But that was the first roost I saw, and that was in 2001. Then we hosted them again. I think it was in 2007. And then again in 2011. And then in 2018, I think we had 3 different nights that we hosted a roost. And then last year, not this past year, but 2019, we were in the sweet spot, right, in our area. There was roost after roost after roost. I was getting phone calls and saying, you got to get over here. There's all these, it was all around me, none in our yard yet at that point. And so I was going, and I had ordered a bunch of tags. And so I took my tags with me, and I was able to tag a few. Well, then we heard of this, I call it a mega roost, that was about, probably 15 miles from us. It was 15 miles. It was over the state line into Indiana. Oh my goodness. It almost looked like what I saw in Mexico. I'm not kidding you. There were literally thousands. It was a farm, and they had to the north, there was this big clover field. Of course, it was in full bloom. And then to the west, another big clover field. And I went over there 3 times, I think. And I went late afternoon, and you should have seen the clover field. I mean, it was just fluttering with monarchs everywhere. And the owners they had a row of pine trees, and they had a big row of some maple trees, and they were on both sides of the trees and in the trees. I mean, it was amazing. It was just an amazing thing. And so we went over there, and oh, is that what you were wanting to?
Yes, it was. And I didn't want to put this up until you were finished, but
Yeah, no, that's good. But anyway, that was a fantastic experience. And that's where we saw a white one. We found a white monarch
wow.
in that mega roost. And we took a picture of it. I didn't tag that one. And I don't know why we decided, there was another girl there, and I don't know why we decided we wouldn't tag the white one, but that was exciting to see that. To find that. I mean, it was really obvious. It was in this cluster, and it's like, oh my gosh, look at the one in the middle there. It was like black and white.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I found a 3/4 white one once, and I didn't tag it either. I don't know. There's something just a little bit sacred about it.
Yeah, it just didn't seem right to
Didn't want to put a tag on it. So one of Kylie's missions and mine is to encourage everyone to do whatever they can to promote monarch conservation. And in that light, Kylee has done many things herself, including participation in this license plate. Can you tell us about that, Kylee?
It started with me seeing an article in the newspaper about the state of Illinois. They were in the process of getting a monarch license plate. So I thought, I wonder if Ohio has one of those. So I looked, I went to the Ohio, I forget what the website is, but anyway, I went there to see if we have one, and we did not. So then I looked at what the process was to get one. And then I thought, well, maybe somebody's already doing that. So I called down there to the BMV, and I said, is anyone in the process of creating a license plate that would benefit monarchs? And she said, no, we have not been notified of that. And I double checked with her what I needed to do. And there were several steps. I needed to have I think it was 200 or 250 people to sign a petition. They all had to be, that they supported the creation of this license plate. Every person that signed it had to have a car registered in the state of Ohio. And believe me, they check. Because it took them about 2 months to go through all the names and all that. So every place I went, I was kind of annoying, and I said, won't you please sign my petition for this license plate? You know, and they had to give their driver's license number, maybe even their social security number. And some people, you know, of course, didn't want to do that, and I respected that. But anyway, and I had other people in Ohio that heard about it. And so they said, we'll help you get signatures. So a couple of people, they did that. Like one of the state parks had helped with that. And I ended up, I had 100 more than I needed, because I thought, you know, just in case some of them didn't pan out. So I had to do that. Then I had to get a state legislator to bring the bill before the House to sponsor it. Well, just so happened that one of our neighbors was someone that we went to high school with, and he was a state representative. So I contacted Tony, and I said, Tony, I've got a favor to ask you. And this would have been in, I think, March of 2016. And he said, well, we only have 2 weeks left in this session. If I can't get it through in the next 2 weeks, he says, my term ends, and you're going to have to do this all over again. And so he said, I will do my best. So he did it. Governor Kasich, John Kasich was our governor at the time. He signed the bill in June. 90 days later, it became law. Then I had to decide who would benefit from the money that they brought in. It costs $25 extra to get the Monarch plate every year. Even if you keep the same plate, it still costs $25. 10 of that goes to the state of Ohio, and 15 of that goes to the Pollinator Partnerships Ohio branch, which is Monarch Wings across Ohio. I wanted the money to stay within the state of Ohio. So every time they sell one of those, the Pollinator Partnership Ohio branch gets $15. We only have to buy statewide 25 license plates every year. That is nothing. I mean, my family
Okay, so
probably buys
people,
half of that.
if you know people in Ohio, you've got to get them to buy this stunning plate. Kylee, how did you feel when you got yours?
Oh my gosh. Well, I did not design the Pollinator Partnership designed that. I had nothing in the design. I would have made, if it were up to me, I would have made the butterfly bigger. Why I want to say, you know, I had been working with them about, you know, with this, and she said, and the director of the Pollinator Partnership out in California said, well, it was her assistant, and she said, she wants to talk to you because if we're going to endorse a book, you know, we'd been working together on this license plate thing. And so they endorsed the book too. And she said, if we're going to endorse the book, I need to ask you some questions. If we have to put our name on that, there are certain things we need to know. Like they wanted to know if I condemned Roundup. There were two questions. It was, are you calling for a ban on Roundup? And I said, no. I said, there are people that know more about that than I do. You know, yes, it's mentioned in the book, but I'm not coming down on a judgmental side of that. I'll give the facts and people can decide for themselves. And the other one was about the petition. Did I think that the monarchs should be listed or not? And again, I said, that is not for me to decide. I said, I do have a personal opinion about it, but I just want people to know that that's going on. And so in the book, I tell them where to go to follow it. And, you know, they can read up and people can decide that kind of thing for themselves. I just give the facts and then they can make that decision. But how did I feel when the license plate came out? Oh, I couldn't wait. It was, well, we just had the 4th year anniversary this week of I think it was January 12th was the first day that they went up for sale, and 4 years ago. And that morning, I wanted to be the first one in at the BMV to buy one, and I wanted it personalized, and I did not get the one that I thought I was going to get because I checked online ahead of time, and when I left the house, it was still available. By the time they opened, which was 15 minutes later, it was gone.
Oh my.
Monarch. I wanted just Monarch. And so then there were, I don't know if I forget what the other ones that we tried, and they were taken. And so the BMV in Paulding, Ohio, I'm in Paulding County, they suggested Monarch 1. She says, why don't you have Monarch 1 since you're the one who is why this license plate is here? And I said, okay, let's try that. And so that's what it ended up being. And I have a picture of me signing my, you know, my registration thing, you know, to get the license plate. And oh, I was so excited. I was just so excited.
Okay, now put your hand up, this kind of hand, if you've got a personal license that has anything to do with monarchs. Put your hand up near your face. There's Dawn.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, we're ready for that's fun. Oh, and Bev, very, very cute. And Bev, what does yours say? Unmute.
Mine just is a random number. I don't have the personal plate, so.
Oh,
my mom has one, and hers says Flutter.
Flutter. Okay, and Dawn.
Mine reads Monarch 7. It was a gift from a friend. And I also have another plate with just Monarch on it that I inherited from his estate, and not sure what I'm going to do with that one, but Monarch 7.
Cool.
Okay, then let's get to the questions. Robin, go ahead.
Kylee, I wanted to know if you are aware of a page for Ohio that would direct me if there happened to be a Roost somewhere nearby. I've never seen one.
I'm not aware of one either, but you know, our Facebook group, Monarch Maniacs of Ohio, a lot of times people will post in there if they've seen one. And I know you're in that group too. But I always direct people to Journey North. Not everybody reports when they've come across a roost, but I always encourage them to do that. And if they don't want to do it, I offer to do that for them. You know, give me the information where you are and, you know, everything that you need for it. So I will do it for them because I think it's really important to report that stuff. And you know, anybody who's familiar with overnight roosts knows that it could be a one-night thing. It might be a two-night thing. You just don't know. Now, the mega roost that was over in Indiana, that she had hordes literally of monarchs for almost a month. And I think I talked to Chip about this and I said, no, I'm sure those are not all the same monarchs. And he said, no, it's like a revolving door. You know, they come in and, you know, one of the ways they find where they're going to roost is, you know, nectar source late in the day and what, you know, a group of trees, if there's water there, that would, you know, maybe be a factor, or other monarchs, you know. So for some reason they just chose that spot, but I always report them and I always encourage other people to, and I know there are quite a few people who had them, and I know some reported, some didn't, but I did some for some of them.
Yeah, I just
That's
know
the best place.
Facebook would
Yeah.
be a place to catch it faster.
Exactly. And you know how it is. It's like hive mind kind of thing. Anybody's seen a roost, you know, you just ask and people will tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then, Sue. You're on, Sue. Unmute.
Hi, I guess I put the hand up for the license plate and I don't know how to undo the hand.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Judith. Unmute. You have a question, Judith?
There we go.
No, I don't have a question, but I have a comment about
Okay.
roosts. I'm in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, and there is an area that the monarchs come to every fall, and it's very consistent, and the area has been protected by a very passionate group of people, and it's called the Monarch Trail. It's in Wauwatosa, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. And we have a very dedicated group. Barb Agnew heads the group, but they are, you know, bent on preserving the area and planting native plants and, you know, preserving it from getting eaten up by development. But every year you can go out there and, you know, they'll post when the monarchs are coming through, and you can go out there in the evening and see them, you know, nectaring in the fields nearby. And then there's a sycamore tree where they will go up and roost up there at night. It's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous.
Well, I know in Ohio, there are a couple of places where they consistently come too, because they cross Lake Erie, you know, like from Point Paley and like Wendy Park in Cleveland, and then up around more over my way, Toledo, you know, like Put-in Bay. They always come there because that's their first land after they've crossed Lake Erie. So
yeah. And the roost that we have in Milwaukee is right in the middle of the city. You know, there's a freeway on one side of it, development all around it.
that's amazing.
They come there every single year.
Well, that's like last year. In fact, last year, right at this time, I was in California for the Western Monarch Summit, and I visited 2 of the traditional, you know, documented roosts, and we saw 0 monarchs at, I'm trying to think, the first one we went to was Natural Bridges. And we took the tour with the naturalists there, and there were 0 monarchs there. It's kind of sad. And then we went to, what was the other one we went to? Oh, we went to Lighthouse Field, and that's where we saw a few clusters. We saw one with a tag on it there, but not very many. We saw the most there, and then we went to Pacific Grove. And when you were saying that, it's like these trees are in the middle, not in the middle. I mean, they're on the coast, but they're city all around them. You know, they're in residential areas. And at Pacific Grove, we saw 4, I think. It was, I don't know, it's pretty dire.
Yeah, it's you know, I know that feeling of and not California where you can keep going to places and can't find them, but in Ontario we have lots and lots of roosts. But go ahead and find them.
Well, and I think that's
we have a fantastic group called Monarchs Migrating through Ontario. And every day people report, oh, we saw 10 bazillion here. So you run there the next day and there are 4, okay? And the next day they say, oh, well, we all went down till you couldn't believe what we saw there. So you go there the next day and they're not there. And Mary Lou and I, we know too, how many times do you have to go out, you know, at this to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, where are they? Well, we got to rent a hotel. We can't get, you know, if you call up Kylee, they can't tell you when the Monarchs are coming.
No.
You know, you want to book a place. So of course.
Well, and the difference between those kind of roosts and the kind we see here and what we were seeing in California is it was winter, and that's where they overwinter. So, you know, there should, they weren't just migrating. They should have been there, you know, and stayed there. So that was a little different, but you know, I had not been to California, and that's why I went to the Western Monarch Summit, because I know less about the Western population than I do the East, and I wanted to learn more about it. And it was a fantastic summit. Chip was there, and Dr. James, David James, he was there. I'm trying to think who else.
Was Don Davis there?
I didn't see him there.
Okay, well, Don Davis has the next question. Go ahead, Don.
Kylee, you're in the Toledo area?
I'm about an hour and a half south and a little teeny bit west of Toledo. I'm
Just
straight
curious.
across from Fort Wayne, Indiana, if you know where that is.
Curious if you ever heard the name Doris Stifel in the Toledo area.
No, I don't know that name.
No, okay. She was a well-known tagger there, tagged with the Urquharts, tagged with Lincoln Brower.
Okay.
She passed in 2013, but quite a lady.
Yeah, I know the zoo in Toledo has a tagging program. They're pretty active in all of that. So
Yeah, she was connected with that, and
yeah,
some sort of memorial gazebo there for her. So
I'll have to check that out next time I'm up that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'll drop you an email.
I don't see any other hands up, which means that I get to ask another question. Hi, Lynn, why are we waving?
Just a question.
oh, she's considering that a hand up, a real hand up. Do you have a question, Lynn? Unmute yourself if you have a question. She either doesn't have a question or she can't unmute herself. Well, you'll have another chance after.
There I go. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah, we can hear you.
No, I can't get that to show any hand up on my computer. May I ask a question?
Sure.
Kylee, I love the connections with kids that I run into, and they just spark on so much excitement and joy. Is there a child in the midst of all the, you know, you've done so many presentations, is there any one child or situation that really touched your heart? You know, when we see these young kids getting engaged in growing monarchs and raising monarchs, and just, it's delightful. So I was wondering if you had a really nice experience.
I've got a couple of things. I haven't done specifically a presentation for children. I generally do, like, you know, master gardeners and at botanical gardens, and I did the Perennial Plant Association in Chicago. I mean, you know, it's more that kind of thing. But I remember when I was at the Monarch Festival in Fort Wayne, the last time, there was a young man there And he was so involved with Monarchs. He had, I mean, just immersed in them. And it was, I think he was, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, something like that. And, you know, he had the full support of his parents. You could tell that they really were all into it with him. And it was just so fun to see somebody so young, so passionate about it.
Good.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
great.
then. We'll take one more question from Sandra. Sandra's unmuting herself.
Yes. Hi, it's actually not a question. It's a statement about the children. So I've been to 2 presentations given by our host and administrator. And the first one was just a little north of me. I live north of Toronto. And Carol had been asking me to go, suggesting I go for quite some time. But they were always on the other end of the city. And I kept thinking, who the heck wants to do that? Anyway, the next one was just really close to me, and I thought, okay, it would be really rude if I don't go. At the end, all the children and even the little ones just bustled up to the table to get their fair share of caterpillars and everything else that she was offering them. And they were just, you could feel their little energy in their bodies, but they were good as gold, but just fascinated by everything that she talked about and what she was giving away. And the second one that I went to was a little further north. And there was one young girl there with her mother. Turns out she's from either further north. She was only 7 and she'd been collecting caterpillars for 3 years. And her mom gave me her phone number because I wanted to introduce my granddaughter, but unfortunately I've lost it. But she was just a very quiet child who, when asked a question, was very polite and well formulated and obviously knew one heck of a lot. And so I have real hope for the future.
Well, I had a young man who was taking a butterfly project in 4-H. This was 2 summers ago. And I had known his grandma through swim team. Our girls were on a swim team when her kids were. So this is a very rural area. So everybody knows everybody and they all know I'm Monarch crazy. And so she called me and I hadn't talked to her in years. And she called me and she said, my grandson's doing this. And I think it would be really great is there any way that we can come and see you and he can ask you questions and any help that you can give him with his project? So I said, absolutely. So she brought him over one day. We went out to the garden and I showed him different things. And I want to say he was, I don't know, 10 or 11, something like that. And very serious about this whole thing. And he asked some really good questions. And he ended up, he got, I think he at the state level, he got like project of the day or something like that. And that year for Christmas, I got this package in the mail. And it was one of those hand-blown old world Christmas ornaments of the caterpillar on the leaf, monarch caterpillar on a leaf. I think it was new that year. I was just floored, and it was a thank you, for helping him with his project. And I said, anytime, I love it. I love it when people ask for help like that. And the thing I'm finding with kids, they know more than their parents do. Teachers are doing a really, really good job in school. It seems to be a standard 3rd grade project that, throughout, at least around here. A lot of the students, I can carry on pretty extensive conversations with those kids and they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, then I'm going to get the last question in, and it's about your blog, Our Little Acre.
And I don't write in anymore.
and yes, and tell us why you stopped, very briefly, why did you stop doing your blog?
I had done it for, I started it in 2007, and I think the last I wrote in it was about a little over a year ago. So I had done it, for 13 years.
Is Is part of the reason that Facebook didn't send it out to many people anymore?
Oh, no, it wasn't that at all. It's that I got very, very busy with writing when I started doing, especially the Monarch book, when I was getting into that, and I was writing for magazines, and I just got busier. And of course, the paid work came before the non-paying work. And Facebook, I'm very, I'm very, very active on Facebook. And so I guess you could call that microblogging. I put a lot out there. I mean, I do have a lot of very personal stuff too. I'm a very open person, and what you see is what you get on there. I'm an oversharer, I'll admit it. But I do have a Facebook page for my book, which I've been a little lax at posting things on that too. But on my personal page and on that page, I found that I could just microblog and talk about a specific thing, on there. And then people would ask me questions, and then I could answer the questions there. It was more of people would leave comments on my blog too, but it's just a little more quick and direct, when you can talk about it on Facebook that way. So that I would blame Facebook for taking me away from writing my blog, along with getting busy. The books, when I was doing the 2 books, that kind of got me out of the habit.
Okay, then. Well, I actually had a little bit of a personal agenda in asking that question. People like Tony has a blog, the Monarch Garden, and a mailing list. But the Facebook page, you see, and I have a page called the Monarch Crusader. And Facebook used to send my posts out in everybody's news feed, but they kind of stopped doing that. So that my page is different than a lot of pages in that it focuses on inspiration and news and fun. And when I put something out, Facebook sends it to between 10 and 20 people of the 11,000 people who have liked the page. So it used to be that they sent it to hundreds and hundreds of people, but they don't anymore because they want to monetize every single page. So unless people actually like and participate with a comment or something, nobody sees my posts, but I do them anyway. So if any of you have any spare time during COVID, and once a month you'd like to go to my page, Monarch Crusader, and actually like something, then all this time that I spend gathering things of major interest will actually go out to some of those 11,000 people. So that was my little agenda. And now I'm going to make announcements. First of all, I want to welcome all the people who just came in within the last 5 minutes. It's so nice to see you here. And misunderstandings about time zones are inevitable. And it's very disappointing when you're waiting a whole day and you come in and the meeting's over. But I hope to see you next time. Everybody who is here, I will send a personal invitation to the next Meet the Author, and that will be with Tony Gomez, author of 2 ebooks, who will have very exciting announcement about his next project. Yeah, nice to see you, Jackie, all the way from the other side of Australia or New Zealand. And for the people who just came, actually, you're in time for the schmooze and cruise, because I'm going to close up the meeting in a minute. And after the official meeting comes and everybody can leave, go to the bathroom, do whatever you want. But everybody is welcome to hang around and just, chaotically chat with whoever they want. So
your invitation has just arrived.
Jackie actually stayed at our house one night and got to experience straight line winds, and it was awful. Power went out. She was in my living room videoing the storm.
Oh, storms are really, really fun. I want to thank everybody for coming, and I particularly want to thank the people who chatted on the sidebar and who provided information, and in particular Angie Babbitt, who reminded us that if we want to support Kylee and buy her book, and it's not about supporting Kylee because you're just going to love the book. I mean, if you look on my blog, monarchcrusader.com, you'll find a review of that book that has only superlatives, and I wrote it right when it came out. So if you want to get the book, why not support Monarch Watch at the same time and get it from Monarch Watch? And if you're at Monarch Watch, well, you may as well pick up your copy of that. And I think that Brenda's book may be there as well, but just check it out to see whatever you can buy, because you need t-shirts and so that you can wear it to the next meeting and dress up Monarch. Other announcements.
Carol, I just wanted to say about your book too. I have a list of recommended reading in the back and websites on that. Tony's website's on there. Your book is on there. Lynn's book is listed. And because when I was writing this book, you know, my publisher asked me, as most publishers will, why do we need another book about butterflies? What is going to be different about yours than everybody else's? And what I told him was, I mean, because he wasn't interested in butterflies. He didn't even know about monarchs and the whole issue of, you know, the decline. He didn't even know about that. So I said, well, you know, when I was trying to self-educate myself and I was having to go to this source and this source and this source, which is fine. I love to do research, but I wanted to bring together basic information plus some really fun, obscure known facts too, in one place where people could just, as a reference, you know, people could learn as they were starting out, but yet there are things in there that, you know, even, I don't want to say not experts, but, you know, more than just beginners, that would be new information for them too. I wanted it all in one spot. But when I talk about raising monarchs, I tell how to raise a monarch. There's a chapter on that about how to do that. But I also say that I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because there are better books out there that deal with that particular thing. And of course, your book is the one that I was referring to, and I have it listed in the back because of that, because it's a really good guide.
Were you talking to me there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You know what? I only had one ear on because I had to do some administrating. Okay, yes. And well, I just love that we all have our little niche. We are all, you know, it's a huge monarch world, and each of us is doing something really different and really unique. And this is why we can coexist. And this is why I can have Tony Gomez as the next speaker, even though he has actually written a book called How to Raise Monarch Butterflies. But
well, you know, that's what I say about this whole situation with the monarchs. Different. There's so many levels that we can help them. And I think that's a good thing because everybody has a different interest. You know, maybe you don't have a garden and you can't grow, but you can, you know, the number one thing I always say is you can talk to people. You've got a mouth. You know, you can tell them about the situation, and maybe they can grow more milkweed if you can't. And, you know, or you can start a garden in your community. I mean, or you can support Monarch Watch with your money or the other organizations. I mean, there's always something that you can do. There's plenty to go around that people can be interested in.
All right. And on that note, that is a really good segue into the second part of the meeting, which is a schmooze. So the second part, I'm going to now release everybody who wants to go because we've been here an hour, so you can all go, and then we amongst ourselves, who the diehards that are left, and Kylie's going to stay a little bit longer, right?
Right.
The ones that are left, we can ask more questions, speak to individuals, and it would be great if we wanted to share what we've done to promote monarch conservation, which is exactly what Kylee was saying, who's got ideas, who's actually done something. So I'm going to wave goodbye, and then I'm going to start with Charmaine, who's going to have the first question in the second part. Bye, everybody who wants to leave. Thanks for coming. See you soon. Okay, so you can find at the end, leave meeting. And now we've got, you can unmute yourself and go ahead, Charmaine, and then Bev, to start the after discussion. And Mary Lou, whoa, a lot of people want to be in the after
And there's
discussion.
Bog, and Bog, I have your book is listed too. And I wanted to tell you the story of when I met, oh shoot, your co-author with your, he's in Texas.
Mike Quinn.
Yes, Mike Quinn. Did you hear the story about when I met him? It was so bizarre. I was at the Garden
No.
Bloggers Fling, which is is this okay if I tell this story?
Sure.
Okay. Well, so I was at the Garden Bloggers Fling, which is held every year for garden bloggers, and it was held in Austin that year. It was 2 years ago, I think. It was a miserable day. It was raining, and we went to the Natural Gardener, which is a garden center just outside of Austin. And so I'm walking around in the rain, and of course I'm looking for milkweed. I wanted to see, because I knew they had different kinds down there, anything that maybe I could also grow in Ohio. So I'm looking around, and this man comes up to me, and he says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I just want to see what kind of milkweed you have." And he said, "Well, we've only got a couple of kinds right now." And somehow we got into this conversation.